Hello, I'm Mark Uncapher, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, what will it take to keep the federal government open so it won't shut down again? Governor Hogan releases his budget, but is more money alone the answer for poor schools? Should Maryland's minimum wage go to $15, twice the Virginia rate? Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by the Dean of Democratic Punditry, Sam Statland, the author of one of the most underrated books on Maryland politics, The Ray Krool Story, I Did It My Way, Dwight Patel, former congressional candidate in CD2 and author of the book Born Again Republican, Liz Matory, and the past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James. Stay tuned for these stories and more on 21 This Week next. State Controller Peter Franchot's office has estimated 172,000 Marylanders are affected by the shutdown, including federal employees and contractors who weren't being paid. His office said that workers typically receive a combined $778 million in salary every 2 weeks and pay a total of $57 million in state and local taxes for each of those pay periods. Elbridge, what will it take to keep the federal government open so it won't shut down again? Is there a permanent deal to be had between the House Democrats and President Trump to keep the doors open?
Well, as we're seeing, it depends on the Senate. And many things I don't like about what Mitch McConnell has done. One thing he's done, he's kept them out of the fray. So in fact, they'll be the calmer statesmen and stateswomen who will then allow to come up with a plan that both sides can get with, and hopefully they can come up with smart government.
Dwight, are there other immigration enforcement tools that the president might accept instead of the wall in order to keep the government open in the future?
Absolutely. There's a number of technology. You can use smart technologies. We don't need to have a wall. We could have slats, fences. Fences makes for good neighbors. I think drone technology and cameras, we can use that, and beefing up the number of border guards at the border will help us alleviate the need for a full-blown Great Wall of America style wall, and I think the president would accept something of that nature. He's mentioned it a couple times. We could use metal slats, we could use fences. Wall is just a symbolic term as a barrier. Is what he wants. And I think if we did, using smart technologies, using drones, using more border patrols and slats, it works. I mean, it works in California where they do have the wall.
Sam, a group of House freshman Democrats, including 3 of the new members from Virginia, wrote Speaker Pelosi saying she should offer a vote just on border security funding in exchange for, I guess now that the government's open, but for a sort of permanent resolution to this issue. Is that a good idea?
Well, I think it was a dynamite idea, and I think it was part of the pressure put upon the president to agree to something he could have agreed to 34 days ago, thus avoiding an awful lot of turmoil with federal employees being paid, contractors, all kinds of related businesses. If you've been in a retail store lately or a restaurant or on the roads, there's nobody out there. So I think the loss to the economy is just unbelievable. Just to get to where we were 34 days ago, and picking up on what Dwight said, I think that the Democrats are willing to negotiate those types of positions. And I think they only have 3 weeks to do it, so they better be working right now as we speak.
Liz, you ran for Congress last year. What did you hear from voters about illegal immigration?
Well, actually, the idea is I actually ran in a whole different district. 2 years ago I was in District 8, which is mostly Montgomery County, Frederick and Carroll. But this year I was running in the Baltimore region, and our region is totally different. The Montgomery County region are full of not only unessential workers that you were speaking of, it's been overflown by illegal entrants. And Baltimore County and Harford and even parts of Anne Arundel, they're at the brink where they still have a strong economy, but they know for a fact that if we don't do anything with our illegal entrants, then they will lose their ability to compete. So it was #1 and #2 on most of the electorate's mind. And I think with the shutdown, you know, the first options that President Trump offered were the exact same options that both Pelosi and Schumer and Clinton and Obama were giving for a decade. And all of a sudden now it's not acceptable. And we wonder, and I think the stress that, you know, the average citizen has is, what don't they see? It was an issue for them 10 years ago, but it's not an issue now. And it's not the whole border. Of course, we cannot cover the whole border. But with talking to the border agents, which apparently President Obama did not do, I guess, you know, they say they need at least some sort of physical barrier to make sure that American citizens are safe. So yeah, the people in the communities care so deeply about it, they wonder why Washington and the Washington region doesn't get it.
But it was heavy-handed.
What
you
was
have an
heavy-handed
agreement that all parties prior to him saying no had accepted, including him, and then come back at this last minute. There are ways that you tactfully can present it to equal branches of the government to say, okay, we'll do this, but on the next round, or I need you to consider something else. He just said no, shut down, and I'm going to own it.
Well,
it was a grandstand play, and that is what pissed everybody off.
Well,
That's
illegal
because
entrance.
he was yielding, absolutely yielding to the far right and the far right in the media that put pressure and pressure and pressure on him not to bend. And today, if you're listening to the far right media, they're doing the same thing over again, berating the president for yielding while the rest of the country is suffering.
So in your statement, you're assuming that I am the far right media and the 77,000 people who voted for me in the general because we wanted border security and we're concerned about illegal entrance are extreme. That's the problem. Most of America knows it's an issue when they are getting hearts ripped out of their chests down the street from the studio. What else do you want? All these angels, mothers, and fathers, do you want more of that? Is that an extreme case? And technically, this issue has been an issue for 20 to 25 years.
Liz, I always
do you
thought
not
of you,
admit that?
I always thought of you, Liz, as being a moderate and a woman who has a great sense of responsibility and a balanced position. So I've always agreed with a lot of what you said and tried to take a lot of the hype out of it. It is a problem. It's a problem that has been faced a long time. And the real problem is that, you know, the House and the Senate have not done the jobs for which they were elected, which is to represent the people and resolve issues.
Sam, I think you got the last word there. Newly re-inaugurated Governor Hogan released his $47 billion budget proposal. It increases spending by 4% with more money for schools, for health, for public safety. According to The Sun, Democratic leaders like it. The House Appropriations Chair said it was a great beginning to the second term. Senate President Miller said things look good. So far, so good, but there's a catch. There's always a catch. The teachers union was not impressed with the $350 million education spending increase, and they're none too keen about his plans to boost charter schools in the state. Liz, the governor said his charter school plan is not like Betsy DeVos or Donald Trump's, but more like President Obama and Arne Duncan's proposals to fix the schools. Can the governor overcome the resistance he has faced in the past to charter schools?
Well, that's the sad thing. Our state is 10 years behind the District of Columbia. And the stresses that our education system is under, knowing full well that half of the children who are educated in Montgomery County are illegal entrants, going back to it, it actually is affecting legal entrants, and specifically Black Americans. Native-born Americans have been just erased out of the lexicon when it comes to particularly Montgomery County schools. So having charter schools is the last option, the nuclear option, if you will, to save the education of children in Montgomery County.
Sam, the Kirwan Commission is intended to recommend more funding for failing schools in the state. Should more charter schools should be part of their plan?
You know, 10 years ago I wrote a paper, a collegiate paper on charter schools, looking at the District of Columbia and the state of Maryland, and at that point we had not one charter school in the state. I think we have one charter school now in Montgomery County. And this issue really comes to the power that the teachers union, both locally here in Montgomery County and statewide, have, because by having competition within the school system, they're concerned that the charter schools would do a better job for less money, less regulation, and show that they're failing. And I think personally that it's a good idea to have competition. I like competition. It keeps people on their toes. And therefore, I don't think you're going to see funding for charter schools, but I think the competition within the districts and more charter schools are not a bad idea. Let's face it, we don't have the only reason we have charter schools is because of the decline of the public school system.
Dwight.
Part of the decline of the public school system is the lack of proper funding. Baltimore has some of the most antiquated buildings, unsafe buildings. Montgomery County is also facing some of that for the number of students that we have to educate. There just was a report that was released showing where the state of Maryland fits in to all the states that graduate students and by race and ethnic group. And Maryland does very well. Montgomery County has always done well, but it is also part of the funding process.
Okay. Montgomery County schools, District of Columbia has 46% of their schools there are charter schools. Ward 7 and 8, we'll all agree, are probably the worst parts of the district. They have a higher graduation rate than Blair High School. Blair High School, you take away the math science magnet and the communications magnet out of the equation, the schools in Ward 7 and Ward 8 have a higher graduation rate. Montgomery Blair High School, I'm a proud alumni of Montgomery Blair High School. We were the first math science magnet class, graduated in 1989. Even my old quantums professor, teacher there at Blair, says the magnet program as well as schools are a pale imitation of what they used to be. Montgomery County schools are not what they used to be. We used to have the best schools. The worst school in Montgomery County was the envy of the state of Maryland.
Absolutely.
Now, today, our worst school is basically the worst school in the state of Maryland.
Let me ask you, you brought up the D.C. charter schools. Now, 50% of the kids, just under 50%.
46% is the actual number.
Are in charters. Is the lack of educational diverse opportunities in Montgomery County going to keep parents who are in the district from moving to Montgomery County?
Yes, I think so. And what's also going to happen is parents who have kids they will scrape and save and send their kids to private schools or parochial schools because public schools have failed Montgomery County students. Yes, you look at some schools like Walter Johnson, Whitman, BCC, Churchill. Those are great schools. But look at Montgomery Blair High School, which used to be one of the best schools in the county. Wheaton High School, Springbrook High School. You look at the East County schools. This is a topic that nobody really wants to address, but the East County schools are a pale imitation of what they used to be. There was a time when every Montgomery County school had a blue ribbon school.
But those schools are facing some challenges, and to ignore the fact those challenges are not present really biases the complaint.
Money is not the solution. The governor could have proposed $350 billion, and the teachers union said, "Oh, that's not enough." We have more than quadrupled spending on public schools since 1972, when SAT scores were the lowest in the country. And if you look at the test scores, they've been a flat line. The patient's dead.
I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about using your resources wisely.
So it isn't just money. So we agree on that. You got to use
the resources wisely to get the most out of your product.
Exactly.
Elbridge, I think the best thing we have going for us is our new executive who taught in the schools and was a student at Einstein High School, who really feels that we need more resources in pre-K. We need more education within pre-K. We need to fund those schools that have large, diverse populations at a better rate than we are now to increase the ability of these students. And unless we do that, you're going to see more charter schools.
No, but you just admit the fact that our population literally has skyrocketed because of unlawful entrance, and that's the reason why our great schools.
We're going to have to stop that, Jack.
Montgomery County.
Are you kidding?
No.
Guys, you haven't been to Blair. You haven't been to the schools that you just mentioned.
You haven't gone to Springbrook. Go to Springbrook. Go to Blair. Don't go to the gifted and talented.
That's the last word. When we come back, we'll talk about the minimum wage and the Montgomery County cost of living. One of the hot issues that the Maryland General Assembly will take up this year is a possible increase in the minimum wage to $15. Now, Montgomery County's own minimum is already to slate $15 in 2 years, so the state bill would do the same for the rest of the state by 2023. Sam, when Montgomery County raised its wage rate, it looked to other jurisdictions like D.C. and Prince George's so that our businesses wouldn't be hurt by the competition. But Virginia's minimum is still set at the federal rate of $7.25. Will that be a problem for Maryland?
I don't think it's going to be a problem at all, because if you look at the unemployment rate in the state, it's very difficult to hire anybody for $7.25 an hour. I don't know of anybody that can start an employee at $7.25 an hour. So without having an official minimum wage, our ad hoc minimum wage already exceeds that. I think you're going to be at least in the $10 to $12 range, which is basically where we are now at our minimum, which will gradually increase. I think Virginia is going to suffer more than we are because of the rate. They're going to have to compete if we ever get traffic moving between the jurisdictions, because I think that they will lose workers and we will gain them.
Dwight, Sam brought up the issue of the tight labor market, and in fact, the unemployment rate for teens now is the lowest it's been since 1969. That's quite an impressive accomplishment. So is now a safe time to raise the minimum wage since the market's so tight?
I'm a free market guy, supply and demand. If I need to hire people and if I need to pay them, I'll pay good employees good money. And I think if you're an exceptional employee, I think you'll make more money. If you don't have the people skills, if you are rude and obnoxious behind the counter or whatever, you're not going to make it. I mean, I think minimum wage laws in general are not really the best thing. All that does is drive up the cost. We'll see robots replacing employees. If you look at all the new McDonald's that are being renovated, they all have those kiosks where you go and do it. That you know how many people they've put out of jobs with us? I mean, now instead of having 4 or 5 people up front, you only need 2 people and people in the back.
See, I agree with Dwight. I think that market forces drive wages. And if for Montgomery County to exceed, we have to do the following. We have to educate a workforce to be able to compete with the jobs in the marketplace, train people for those occupations that we need, and if we do that, we'll be very successful. And you'll find that our average minimum wage will be above $15 an hour.
Elbridge, but you raise an interesting point. Elbridge, I'll ask you this question. I mean, the county planning department released this week a study that showed that adjusted for inflation, the median family income in Montgomery County hasn't increased since 1989. Are Montgomery County residents losing ground to other jurisdictions? And if so, what should be done about it?
That we've already started between the number of new families coming into the county, and a lot of those new families don't have some of the education and or English language skills, in fact, to get the better paying jobs. And that's why I stated earlier, we need to, in fact, improve their abilities and skills because they're already here. And Dwight, let me explain what happened to my wife's company in Virginia. Turnover rate was astronomical among those that were just making $77.95 an hour. The company itself had to go back and revise its rate, so now they're paying their lowest workers $10 an hour.
That's supply and demand, free markets.
But bottom line, we're talking about Virginia.
Yeah.
We're talking about Virginia. Virginia, with that $7 an hour, is not going to make it.
And
they
it's
need
also
to raise.
A proven fact of life that if you treat your employees fairly, if you pay them a living wage, or even better, with fringe benefits, what you're going to have are happy employees, happy clients, happy customers who they're servicing, a happy employer because he's making money, and that trickles down to everyone.
Yeah,
but let me take it in a different direction. I mean, Liz, let me ask you, I mean, Montgomery County household incomes have been flat relative to inflation, but housing costs in the county have gone up. And in 1990, about a third of the houses were people over 55. Now they're the majority, whereas in 1990, about 18% were owned by people under 34. Now just 7%. So basically, younger people are not being able to move in. Is the higher cost of housing a big impediment to coming to Montgomery County?
Yeah, that's the sad thing. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I had to leave Montgomery County, quite frankly, is I'm 38, turning 39 next month. My generation can't afford Montgomery. If we do, we can afford Damascus, perhaps. But beyond that, we are having to find Howard County, maybe, if not, we're getting priced out of there, Frederick in the county, and then Harford, Carroll, etc. So you're seeing maybe the benefit of the other counties. It's a brain drain happening in Montgomery County. And to assume that all of this growth doesn't have an actual impact and cost. People buying houses, first thing they do, they look to the schools, correct? Mm-hmm. If they look and see the failure rate, they will not buy. Talking about 15 to 30 year investment of a home, there are way more options now, and I guess it's the benefit of the rest of the state, because at the behest of Montgomery County, because it has not done anything to attract people beyond downtown Silver Spring and Chevy
wait
Chase.
a second.
So that's
wait
the
a
last.
second.
We'll come back. Stay tuned for parting shots. 21 this week, regular panelist Rich Parsons, his son Michael, and daughter Rachel are headed to Detroit, where Team Parsons is skating in the national competition. Rich's children compete at the senior level in ice dance and represent the Washington Figure Skate Club in Team USA. From all of us at 21, a shout out to Team Parsons. And now with parting shots, Sam Statland.
I just want to talk to my friends for a second in the business community. I think that you guys should take a deep breath and step back, talk to those of you who have met with our county executive, Mark Elbridge, and see what Mark's plans are to increase the business community and make things better for business in Montgomery County. He's sincere about it. He's working at it. He's listening to you guys. Let's give everybody a chance and see how well Mark can do.
Dwight Patel.
Hi, I want to talk to my friends in the county as well, and want to say on February 23rd, the Montgomery County Republican Party will be having our convention, and more important, we're honoring a great lady in Maryland. We're doing a tribute to Ellen Sowerbury. Come on down, meet Ellen, come to the lunch. More information at mcgop.com. Our convention, one of the funnest things you could do in the month of February.
Liz Matory.
Well, I wanted to give a shout out to the people who finally have a Democrat socialist for their county executive, and now all of a sudden they have to find out that socialism does not work and you cannot afford it. So welcome everyone to the reality of what we have and what you were able to elect. And I wish you well, and I do hope that the county can survive these next 4 years.
Elbridge.
After looking at the Kerwin Commission and what some of the governor has stated in terms of education opportunities we're pushing, I applaud them. I say let's bring the bottom up, and then everyone will benefit from that.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, panelists. We had to do a quick change because we had the good news today of the shutdown ending, and hopefully we'll be able to not have this as a topic 3 weeks from now, because they'll have worked something out. Thank you for tuning in to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show, and be sure to follow us on social media. And I'm sure everyone will look forward to having Casey and Susan back as hosts next week.